Welcome to the CyBUr Guy Podcast, your source for engaging cyber education, cyber discussions, and a look at current cyber news and trends with retired FBI Special Agent Darren Mott.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the CyBUr Guy Podcast, a special edition on this July 3rd, 2024. I'm going to bring in my guest here in a little bit, but two things on this. If you are watching this on live stream on LinkedIn or YouTube, thanks so much for that. If you are just listening it the regular way on the podcast, that's kind of where we're at. If you are listening to the live stream, there should be a chat button. You're welcome to join Scott and I here when we get talking about the topic of the day. But I kind of want to just reintroduce the CyBUr Guy Podcast. It's been a couple months. As many of you may or may not know, I've been doing a daily podcast, which is actually now 3 times a week, the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. So if you miss these dulcet tones, you can certainly go there to listen to me talk about the news of the day in 15 minutes or less, hopefully. Sometimes it goes a little over. Usually it's a little less. Also, since we've been with the podcast, I have released a book. It is called Get Cyber Smart. Let me put that in the frame there. A user-friendly guide to protecting your family, your business, and yourself online. It's available on Amazon. Very cheap. Feel free to go grab a copy. If you have it and want me to autograph it and you're in Huntsville, there's a signing actually next week that my wife put together. I'm sure the 4 people that show up to get it signed will be awestruck by my awesomeness. So the reason that this podcast is kind of been a little less frequent is because of the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. And I have another podcast I do with Paul Perry from Warren Everett called Tactical Cyber. We do try to do that twice a month, and it's talking about unique perspectives you can do to keep yourself safe. But the reason that this podcast exists tonight on the live stream and whenever you're listening to this in the podcast is because my good friend, let me bring him in, Scott Augenbaum, had a good idea that we should talk about how to protect seniors because he has been getting a lot of different calls from a lot of different folks that have been having issues. So Scott, welcome back to the last podcast we did for the CyBUr Guy was you as well, celebrating the 5th anniversary of your book, The Secrets to Cybersecurity. And so welcome back.
Well, congratulations, Darren, on your book. That's great news. I know it only took a couple of weeks for the FBI headquarters to approve, so that was pretty quick.
Yep. Sent it up there in February, and they said they will have it back to me by October. So I sent them an email like on the middle of June and said, just checking because their policy said 30 days. And so I was going to release it on my birthday, June 28th anyway. And oddly enough, 2 days later, I got an email saying, yeah, we have no problems with it. You can release it like it is. So there you go.
Excellent.
But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about protecting seniors. So give us an update on why this is a passion for you now. What caused this? We were having this discussion. Say, hey, let's do a podcast on this. So lead it out. How do we get here?
Well, let's just say it's a constant theme in my life of frustration. Past couple of months, I've been building some training programs for some healthcare organizations around the country. And to be honest, I just really wasn't fulfilled with it. As we're sitting here and so many people are saying, Scott, can you just, build us 90 minutes, build us 30 minutes. We want to teach our employees, 30 minutes worth of cyber and, didn't turn it down. But one of the things that's really, really, troubling for me, and especially during my career with the FBI and you, is that, we see that the cyber criminals are going after the end users. And there's been such an incredible uptick in the years. I mean, as the problem gets worse, the attacks on our senior population is through the roof. And unfortunately, when I get these calls and I'm talking to people, and I had 2 calls over the weekend from people, it really kind of broke my heart because it was hospice. And I knew if I could go back in time and get with these victims before they became victimized and just sat down with them and said, look, let me give you a little advice. I know I could have prevented it. So every year in July, I like to do my spoof on Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is a really big marketing holiday for the information security marketplace, to sell products and services. So I kind of said, look, for me, July is Cyber Secure Mindset Month. So this July, I said I am going to dedicate my entire month to putting out content almost every day or every day on how to keep our senior parents safe. And to get the record straight, at age 56, my 21-year-old calls me his senior parent.
Yeah. So what was the events that happened over the weekend?
Same events that have been happening every day for the past 20 years, Darren.
Well, I understand, but I mean, what's the time? I mean, yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's just been one after another. And I wanted to do this for the longest time, but all of a sudden, I get a call from some woman who tells me that, hey, she's in time, she's carrying on and on. I won the sweepstakes. I won the lottery. I just had to pay taxes. And I'm just trying to cut to the chase. Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting my days as a crisis negotiator of active listening. I just needed to get to the point. How much money are you out? And she says to me, $270,000.
That's nice.
And I'm like, $270,000. And I'm like, how did this happen? And, it happened through social engineering, something we're going to talk about a lot tonight. It happened because she was duped into a sweepstakes fraud. She wired them money to pay taxes, which is just another form of an advanced fee scheme. And to make matters worse, Darren, when she was out about $200,000 or so, she was contacted by Special Agent Everett White of the FBI, who told her that they were tracking the bad guys, and if she put money into an account, it would lure them in, and she would get all of her winnings back and everything. So she jumped through the hoops, paid this, wire transferred this money. There was a mule involved, which is an unwitting accomplice. And the next thing you know, this woman's out $270,000. She's contacted the FBI office. They told her to go to IC3. They contacted the local sheriff's department. And they come to me as a last resort.
Mm-hmm. And of course, what did you tell her?
It's the hardest part of what I do.
Right.
The hardest part, and it's a very difficult thing when you have to sit with a victim who lost $270,000. This other woman was out $48,000. A couple of months ago, I had a $5.8 million pig butchering scam victim. And there's almost like that shock and that silence because they always have that moment of hope that this is real. It's real. I just need to pay a little bit more money. And that's the whole social engineering aspect of this.
Yeah. So let's talk about pig butchering a little bit because that's really the number one cybercrime going on now, right, is the cryptocurrency related fraud. I mean, I'm sure you're like me. You get 5 to 6 of these messages that start on LinkedIn or social media every week that say, hey, I've read your profile. I've seen your resume. You seem like a very fascinating person. Let's have a conversation. And I know that you had a very lengthy conversation with one of these scammers. So talk a little bit about that. What was why did you do it, right? I mean, part of it is to understand the scheme, but talk about
it was the whole motivation of it to try to understand what these people want to take you down and the pathway. And it was, again, social engineering at its finest. It was a woman who identified herself as Love Han, which was a very interesting name. And, and because here's the first thing, whenever you're going to talk to anyone, and this is happening in almost any scam that we deal with, they want to get you off of the platform and they want to get you either onto WhatsApp or they want to get you on Telegram. So Darren, tell everyone, why do they want to get people off the platform? Why do they want to get them off LinkedIn? Why do they not want to deal with them on text messages or Facebook? Why do they want to go to these platforms?
Because they're encrypted end to end and they can't be monitored. Can't track them back. Can't track where they're coming from, all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is this woman spent about 7 days working me and trying this. It was completely platonic. And it was all about investing money and putting money into a simulated trading app. And, they were going to teach me how to do it. And this is how it all starts. And they call it the pig butchering scam for that reason. And, I just kind of got tired. It just got to the point. And, eventually I confronted this individual and we had a really, really, interesting conversation about this. Now, this is happening to seniors all the time, but I would say in the past week, I've gotten 3 text messages from people who just say hello. Have you ever gotten those?
Oh, all the time. Right. Yes. Text messages. Absolutely. And then,
okay.
Yeah, you said I think you have the wrong number or something. You say something along those lines and then they go from there.
Well, on each one of these, I happened to kind of go down that rabbit hole. And it was very interesting. They all were work-at-home jobs. Each one of them moved me again to Telegraph or WhatsApp, where they kind of set me up on some crazy story. And they took me to these websites that were trading websites. And I really couldn't spend a lot of time trying to dissect the scam on what exactly that they were doing. But here's a couple of the elements. It looked a little too good to be true. Mm-hmm. It was a work from home job. Listen, I can stay at home. I can make $100 the first day, $200 the second, $300. It only takes an hour a day. They couldn't even explain to me what I was doing, but they gave me these websites. So I looked at the websites in a secure environment. I also did a little research on them in Google. They were new websites. There was nobody complaining about these websites. They looked very, very legitimate, and that's where the fraudulent action would take place. But the 2 things we're talking about, and this is happening to seniors all the time, investment fraud. If it looks too good to be true, it usually is. And the other one is work from home scams. And at the end of the day, there is no antivirus product. There is no solutions to this. It's all about the education. And this is why I've decided to spend the next couple of weeks really kind of diving into this topic.
So what do you think? I'm trying to kind of word this right. I know the answer, obviously, but why seniors? Like, why are they looking for seniors? Because obviously seniors are retired, have money, all that kind of stuff. So is there any other rationale besides that?
Well, the seniors are very not tech savvy, very, very trusting. Also, loneliness, isolation, and a lot of this, people are looking for connections. They are looking to talk to people. They're looking to, something to really validate who they are and what they're doing. And that's why we see so many of these scams across the board. And we're going to dissect a couple of them that they really, really work well. And, looking at the www.ic3.gov Internet Crime Complaint Center report, if you look at that, the statistics for seniors keeps getting higher and higher. Now, Darren, let me ask you, you've dealt with the IC3 report before. Do you think it's accurate, or do you think there's some underreporting in there?
No, it's all underreporting. You're just getting the people that report it. People don't want to report it because they feel ashamed. They don't want to admit that this happened to them, right? As seniors get older, then they still want to maintain their independence as best they can, and it's hard for them to give that up. So if they say, hey, I lost $200,000 to an online scam, then there's the fear that the family or someone will try to take over their finances. They'll lose their independence. I mean, that's just one reason. But that's the big one, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of it comes down to the fact that they're just plain scared. They're embarrassed, and they really don't know where to go. Right. Because unfortunately, what happens when you're a local senior and you get ripped off in a cryptocurrency case and you call your local police department? No knock on local PDs, but what are they doing? Why what can a local police department do for that?
Not much. They'll probably say call the FBI because we don't work those cases because it's all overseas, and so we don't have any authority. And then the bureau has the same problem. It's hard to find these guys. I mean, there's been all sorts of reporting that there's huge compounds in Malaysia and Vietnam or near the Chinese border that there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on that helps these farms do these scams. I mean, I get calls. I get on an average 15 spam calls a day, and I think I'm underestimating. Now, part of that is when they call, I know it's a spam call, and I will answer it just to mess with them, right? And that's probably not the right way to go, because then they know the number's active and they'll keep calling. But it's always a foreign accent. Well, maybe, and one of the things, obviously, AI is now being used for this as well, because the first voice you'll hear is an AI generated voice that has the ability to kind of respond to your questions. Like if you say something, like if they say, hey, I'm here to talk to you about your Medicare, right? That's a big one. I want to talk about your Medicare A and B options. So do you have Medicare? They expect a yes. If they say something else, they say, well, I don't think I quite got that. My question is blah, blah, blah. Even if you say, I don't think you're a real person, they say, I know I might sound like I'm not a real person, but I really am, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get to, okay, you've answered the questions correctly. Let me take you to one of our representatives. And then it's certainly a guy in the Far East who's, says his name is Tom.
No, exactly. And, so look, the problem keeps getting worse. The reports are out there. We talked about the financial impact and the underreporting. But, one of the things I always like to break this down to, and I think this holds true for everything, is, the 4 truths of cybersecurity, which is, universally what we go by. And, it falls for almost every type of victim. I just dealt with a woman the other day whose Facebook account was taken over. And most people say, big deal, my Facebook account was taken over. But they used her account to send and start posting messages that she made all this money on cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And they kind of played it in. So the first truth, and it was the same thing with her, is she goes, I can't believe I was a victim. I don't think I fit the victim profile. So talk a little bit about that with me when we're really kind of related to seniors. Are they going after high net worth seniors, or are they going who potentially could be a target?
Anybody who answers the phone. Anybody who answers the phone, continues the conversation with them, has the ability to pay something. They'll even say, look, we need $5,000 to do blah, whatever it is. And they say, well, I don't have $5,000, I only have $2,000. Okay, well, let's start there. And they'll take for whatever they can, because they don't care. They don't care if you're a high net individual or not. If they get a high net worth individual, like, great, it's a bonus. But they don't need a high net worth individual, because for every millionaire you can find, there's 100,000 heirs. And you can get money from them just as well, and it adds up over time.
Yeah. And so nobody ever expects to be a victim. This was the victim that I had just a couple of last week, who was over a resident at a senior living facility. And she was tricked in an email saying that she owed back rent in the amount of $17,000. And she called the number in the email, spoke to an individual, and actually met someone at a gas station and went to the banks and withdrew $17,000 and handed it to a guy at a gas station in San Francisco. So that goes to truth number 2. I mean, this is a little different. I mean, now you actually have regular players involved. This could have been a mule. This could have been somebody who was, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, let's stop and dissect that for a second. Here we have, because I've seen this before. The woman gets a targeted email. There's a telephone call. There's directions. And the next thing you know, she's going to meet someone in a parking lot. Who is she meeting in the parking lot? Do you think that was the actual mastermind behind this?
No, of course not. Scummo is going to get cut of the money, and they send the rest off. And I mean, my guess is obviously it's going to be organized crime in some way, shape, or form. There's some kind of, it might be Russian organized crime, might be Chinese organized crime, Japanese. Pick your organized crime option that you want. But they certainly have people all over the place, so it makes it easy to say, hey, you're going to go do this for us today, and sure. Now, I will say, in that kind of case, at least there is a possibility somebody could get arrested ultimately, but really, do we think it will? Right?
My whole thing would be, and this is why I say this is the second truth to cybersecurity. The chances of law enforcement recovering this money is slim to none.
Sure.
So let's just say hypothetically, there's a camera at the gas station. It picks up the guy's license plate number and everything like that. We get the lead. Imagine you're the case agent in the Huntsville RA. You get a lead to go interview Mr. Smith because there's videotape that Mr. Smith, showed up and took this woman's money.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that Mr. Smith would say? I'll tell you what I think. What do you think it's going to say when the FBI goes over and interviews Mr. Smith?
Go ahead. I don't know.
You don't know. Come on. You've never done this. I mean, my whole thing is, okay, so why don't you talk to me? I'm Mr. Smith. Go confront me, interrogate me, ask me if I took $17,000.
Okay, so he's going to say, well, I just answered an ad online to be a courier, and I went when I did what I was told. I took the money, I sent it, brought to where I was supposed to, and that was the end of it.
And he's going to show you his receipt.
Yep.
For Western Union, or not even anymore. He's going to show you his receipt for the Bitcoin ATM machine.
Yep.
And at that point, he's going to say, hey, I kept $750 for myself for the fee. And then that happens. Now, the mastermind behind this is someone from a Proton Mail email address. So ask me, Darren, how difficult is it for someone to recover and trace the bad guy down from some Proton Mail email address?
How hard is it? It's impossible. Well, I mean, it's not impossible. Yeah. Okay, nothing's impossible. But it is very difficult, and good luck with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that goes to the third truth of cybersecurity, which is putting the bad guys in jail. Really, really is difficult. And I don't know. I got a little. I hate to say it at my age, Darren. I get triggered every once in a while. I got triggered a couple of days ago when someone commented on one of my LinkedIn posts and said that it's really easy. This is a really easy law enforcement problem to fix.
Mm.
What's your thoughts on that?
Say that again. Sorry, I was trying to get. So I'm sorry. We have a comment on LinkedIn that for some reason not pulling up on StreamYard. It's irritating me, but it's from Mark Evans. So we'll come back to that question. So Mark Evans said, "Great info, Scott. I've seen the exact scam happen, and you're right about telling the victim the hard truth. It's extremely hard to do, but has to be done." So thank you, Mark Evans. If I could figure out how to do this on StreamYard, I would post it here for all us to see. But I've got it screwed up. So anyway, go back to what's your question?
Hey, how do we get Mark Evans on here? Mark's a good buddy of mine. You got to interview Mark. Mark's good friend with the Las Vegas Police Department doing a killer job, and he's out there on the front lines. And Mark stuck up. I mean, because someone said to me, "Hey, this is a really easy law enforcement problem to fix," which really leads me to the fourth truth about cybersecurity. The chances now is that, and let me tell you, and this is every call I get. This is the frustration that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get anyone's money back. I can't put the bad guys in jail. I'm getting ragged on by LinkedIn from some guy with the telecommunications industry who's telling me that this is an easy problem for law enforcement to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, maybe I've been gone for 6.5 years, and maybe my law enforcement partners will say, "Hey, Scott, you're old. This is a new era. Stop talking about this." But it's not the case.
No.
If I could go back in time and I can put my hands on any of these victims, I could have prevented the victimization from occurring.
Right. Part of it, it's awareness, right? And we've talked about this a lot because you've got a lot of seniors that maybe, they didn't grow up in the computer age. Obviously, if you're in your 80s, when the internet started 34 years ago, you were still in your 50s at some point, and you were probably slow to come around to it all. So by the time you said, well, maybe I should get a computer, maybe I should get a smartphone, they were in their late 60s, early 70s, and certainly learning about the scams. Who's telling them, right? Because obviously the family members probably don't know either. I had in my book, the first story I talk about, the reason I even wrote the book was I had a lady come in, and she had, this is going back 14 years, but she had won the lottery online, right? She got an email, she won the lottery. She just needed to pay the taxes or whatever on it, and she'd get her money. And she kept paying and hoping she would get the money. And then $200,000 in, she finally told her neighbor who brought her to the FBI, and I had to do exactly what you're saying with the four truths. This was, they just happened a month ago. There's no way I can trace it. I can't get your money back. It was a bummer. But with the VoIP stuff, the guy who says, "Hey, it's easy to investigate." Well, I'd like to see the white paper on how easy that is and how successful it is, because they're using voice over IP coming from Asia. Is he aware of the MLAT process? Is he aware of all that stuff?
I don't even know. And I'm going to make one more comment, and then I want to move on to because I really want to define some of the different types of social engineering. But I was on a law enforcement working group trying to combat this fraud, and man, I hate to say it, I dropped like a turd on the table, Darren.
Mm-hmm.
I know you might find this hard to believe, where I said to a group of young, eager prosecutors and law enforcement people, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem.
Oh yeah, no way. Yeah, there's no way.
And they're like, look, we're going to try, we're going to do our best. And I'm like, I get it. We've done that. You've been over to Moscow. I've been over to Toronto, to hostile territory like Toronto, trying to work with the RCMP, trying to get legal assistance treaties. It's really, really difficult. That's why awareness is so important in this aspect. So let's talk about this. And Darren, this is my new thing. And I mean, I love to drop this line with my CISO friends. So I want to see your reaction. This is a question you're going to have to think about.
Okay.
But as I'm sitting here now and I go, are you familiar with the 8 different types of social engineering? And then I just stop and I pull back.
All right. So tell us what those are.
It's such a bad, unfair question, but I want to walk through it because let's just go through it. We have to be aware of social engineering. But Scott, we do phishing training. And I'm like, okay, it's not about phishing training. We're talking about our senior parents here. We're talking about people in assisted living. They have to understand what is social engineering. How would you describe social engineering, Darren, in just a quick little, because I'm always looking for the best definition of it. I can't.
That's a good, social engineering is using impersonal connections to make people do things that they wouldn't normally do. I guess I don't know if that works.
And I'm going to break that down. I'm going to break your 7th grade definition down into a 4th grade definition.
All right.
Which is tricking people to do something they normally wouldn't do in furtherance of some kind of financial gain.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And with the use of technology, it's making things easy. So let's kind of break this down, and maybe we can do part 1 and part 2 of this because there's so much for us to cover. But let's really so we have to understand social engineering has been around since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I started and I was an FBI agent in Syracuse, New York, I was working, I think we called them 196E cases, wire fraud. Someone would send a wire, they would send a fax, they would trick people into doing things. Now with the use of technology, it's making it so easy. And email is the number 1 logical choice, but let's take them all. We all know about emails. We're going to get an email from somebody we know and somebody we trust, and they want us to do 2 things. Click on a link, download an attachment, and boom, that is where the magic happens. Now, everyone goes over, and a lot of companies have email protection plans. I mean, let's be real. Even Gmail does a pretty good job of blocking spam. But you're going to get an email, but emails are going to slip through the system. I went through my spam folder in Gmail, and I came out with 12 beautiful slides of baiting, hey, you won this. Hey, the Geek Squad, your credit card is expired, Amazon Prime. So, and before I didn't give it a lot of justice. I would talk about, I'd spend a half an hour talking about phishing. And at the end of the day, what would we tell people? Think before you click.
Right. Yeah.
Think before you act.
That's yours. Mine is bad guys win because someone always clicks the link, right? Because someone always does. Right? I was doing a consulting with a medical firm, and the lady asked me, "Hey, why am I getting emails from myself? I have all these spam filters on and all this other stuff with Gmail, but I got this email that looked like it came from me." And I said, "Well, the filters only know to filter what they know to filter, and bad guys figure out how to get around the filter, and then they get in, and there you go." And that's it. I mean, you can do know before if you're a company. You can do know before doing all that training. But what's your experience with the effectiveness of know before over time? Or things,
listen, they're making money. They're doing a great job.
Like things like, I'm not picking on know before specifically, but just things like that.
But at the same time, it even gets to the point where it's like, that's why you need a mindset. 30 minutes worth of training. So let's pretend for this rest of the show, the email problem has been solved. You are never going to get a fraudulent email again. But you know, so let's move on to a couple of let's go on to the other things. We have text messages. Now you're going to get a text message that's going to look like it's coming from your bank. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And let's even forget for a second, there's no link to click on. All it says is your account at your bank is overdrafted. Someone withdrew money. Please call 1-800 number 321-7134. Let's even say it's your American Express card. You call that number and it says, "Hello, American Express Fraud Department. Please provide us with your date of birth and social security number for verification."
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like a spam call? Or, I mean, doesn't American Express ask for that information quite a bit?
Some of it, yeah. I'll give you a better one. You get a text message that says, "Your Amazon shipment of your $1,200 laptop has been delayed. Please contact this number to do whatever." And you contact the number, say Amazon assistance, and they say, okay. You say, "I didn't order a laptop." "Well, let's see if you got fraud in your account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a text message that for you to confirm that it's your account." And so what they've done is they know your Amazon email and they know your Amazon password. They're waiting for that OTP, the one-time, I don't know, I think P stands for passcode, one-time passcode number that Amazon will send you if you have multi-factor authentication set up. You get the text message with the OTP, and then boom, you give it to the person on the phone. They now have your OTP. They get into your account. You're good. It's your host. Seniors have no idea that it's going on.
Oh no! It's just that. So we have the text messages. I see my friend Irene just said hi online, and
I will say,
okay.
I will say, if you're on LinkedIn and you make a post now, I can show it up on the screen. I figured out how to do that.
Okay, good.
There you go. So
that is great. But we see that all the time. The other one is the dreaded telephone call. So what have we covered so far? We're talking about social engineering. We're talking about scams. We're talking about email. We're talking about text messages. Now we're talking about telephone calls. I had a friend of mine, close friend, senior, a couple of years older than me, from New York, really on the ball. But they got a telephone call that looked like it was coming from the Social Security Department. And it made their to them. So they see the call, they take the call, yada, yada, yada. One thing leads to another. They hang up, and the guy says, my guy, Bart from New York, says, "Hey, why don't you just have the local cops call me if this is real?" 2 minutes later, he gets a call from the Metro Nashville Police Department. And at the end of the day, this individual is tricked out of $40,000. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they sent the money in a Bitcoin ATM machine, never could get that money back.
Yep.
So, so we're seeing telephone calls. I also had an interesting one, and I want to tell you, I had a robocall situation where someone was getting their news on Telegraph, heard the presidential candidate say, "You need to buy Trump coins and invest your money." And this person invested $15,000. It'd be one thing if you bought $15,000 in actual coins, but it was a complete scam because they spoof the voice through artificial intelligence. Explain, Darren, how artificial intelligence, especially on the telephone calls and even on email or text, is really wreaking havoc.
Yeah, because there's so much data that's pulled in. And from an audio perspective, it just needs a little bit of your voice to be able to match. Basically, if you think about it, your voice is just a wave. It's a sound wave, right? And we all have different inflections and methodologies and peaks and valleys to that sound. And so being able to have a short snippet of someone's audio can kind of give them an idea of how that sound wave works. And then using we have strong computer processing. It's very easy to manipulate that. And if you say, I want you to say this using this voice, it could easily happen. There was yesterday, and everybody knew it was fake, but someone had done an audio fake of the coach of the Lakers talking about what a horrible choice it was to draft LeBron James' son. But it was bogus. But I'll give you a better example, and I'm sure you know this example. A Hong Kong company had a Zoom call with 15 executives and the head of finance. The 15 people in the call only showed the picture of them, and there was all deep fake audio voices, and it got the finance person to wire transfer $25 million somewhere. So that company lost $25 million with this elaborate deep fake voice scam. So it's going to get worse. It's not as bad now because it's not perfected, but once they figure out the video and the audio together, which, the video has been around a while. You can do deep fake videos all day long, but it's the audio that's been the issue. But now it's accelerating at a rapid rate that it's going to make this problem, especially for those who are not paying attention to the threats, who are already easy victims, that much easier to be scammed.
Yeah, and that's why you got to come up with, I would say, like a code question for your family.
Yep.
That is, okay, what is our favorite pet? And then the answer should be like a car or a washing machine or something.
Yep.
So there's no way that you could figure that out, and there has to be two pieces of the puzzle.
I'll give you the best ones. What's your favorite vacation location? Cleveland. There you go. There's your question.
Yeah, but something where it's the wrong answer,
right,
and that works pretty good. So we're covering that kind of spectrum. The other thing that we need to really be aware of is, okay, so let's just say for a second, we clean up. There's a mysterious product. It's taking care of your email. It's taking care of your text messages. It's taking care of your telephone calls. We're out of the woods. And no, we're not, because now we have social media account compromises.
That's a big one. Happening all the time. I got 3 of them today saying don't accept a friend request from whoever, some friend.
Mm-hmm. So somebody takes over, and there's two points to this. The first one, and when I go out and I'm speaking at conferences, I'm asking people, how many of you have Facebook and LinkedIn? Everybody raises their hands, and they go, how many of you are using two-factor authentication, which is that second form of authentication? So even though if you're listening to Darren, you read Darren's book, you put two-factor authentication on all your platforms, right? Mm-hmm. Right. But that doesn't mean that all your friends and all your followers are going to do that.
Right.
So we have to be aware. We have to be suspect anytime anytime we get a message, I hate to say it, it's a fraud until I can figure it out. And that's when they're asking, they're requesting sensitive information, we have to be really, really careful. And especially when we're talking about social media and social engineering, got to be really careful on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of bad scams going on there.
Yep. Well, the other problem with Facebook and Instagram you got to understand is if you have an open account, people can go in and pull a lot of information from that about you and create a fictitious account of you without having to take over your account. They could just take over your identity because of the amount of information you leave on those platforms for them to just pull because it's there, pictures and, your email address. And they could create, if your email address is Augenbaum@yahoo.com, I'd create a Augenbaum@yahoo.com, but the O in Scott is a 0. No one's going to be able to see the difference.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to see that. That's why having this mindset, this awareness, and it's just, how do we sit down here and you tell your senior parents, hey, look, you'd met a friend on Facebook, and, and on each one of these things, I came up with 50 different types of frauds. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think we're going to get to those. So now let's go on to what I would say is number 5 on my list, which is the dreaded pop-up. We have to think about that. That is a type of social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a situation where I had a senior. It was a friend of my son's friend's grandmother, got a pop-up on her computer. The pop-up said it was from Apple and said, look, this is Apple security. There's a little bit of a problem going on here. We think you're being scammed. Please call the 1-800 number. She calls the 1-800 number, talks to them. They socially engineer her to get her money out, to tell her what bank, she tells them what bank. They connect her and say, hey, we're going to contact someone at the bank. So they talk right now, and they completely trick her, and they get her to get in her car and go out and get $1,800 worth of Google Play cards. She scrapes the Google Play cards off and sends it to the bad guy.
Wow.
Yep. Woof, money disappears.
Yep. And you would like to think that one shouldn't work anymore, but it does.
Well, no, it works continually, and that goes over, and that's why you need good antivirus on your computer. How do you ensure that your senior parents have? Because what happened? There was and that's why it's so important that anyone right now, when you're sitting here and you're on Google Chrome and it goes over and you look in the upper right-hand side and it says finish update, man, that means there's a problem.
Yep.
And I don't know about you. I think I'm doing this, at least 3 times a week.
Oh,
How often do you know?
Geez, every browser has an update. Zoom, I must update Zoom 3 times a week. I only use it once, but it seems every time I go to use it, I got to update. I'll do it again.
And when it's not updated, these things happen. Now, this is a blended social engineering attack, because now we have the telephone call. We have the actual telephone call, the pop-up, which leads them to the telephone, that leads them to get the gift cards, to scratch it off and send it over text message. Mm-hmm. And boom, money is gone, happening all the time. The other one that I am seeing is what we call malvertising. And what is that? It's just a very simple way of saying that when you go to Google and you type in Apple iPhone repair and you go to the first link, well, the first link has to be legitimate, right, Darren?
I don't think so.
What do you mean? It's a sponsored link. Somebody paid with a credit card to put an ad there.
Yeah, bad guys have credit cards. They can pay for ads.
Yeah. So we're seeing that. I had 2 situations that just occurred. And this is a friend who called me up because her dad did that same thing. The other one happened to search Amazon Prime deals. One searches cell phone repair, and they get scammed, and they're able to be wiped out. This last one was $16,000 or $17,000 because they said, "Hey, there's a problem with the iPhone. Let's log in." It also comes back to the good old, the tech support scams that we see that play out. This person was able to get access to the computer for some reason and said, hey, can you download, TeamViewer and allow us this? So what happens, Darren, when a senior is directed to download TeamViewer on their computer to give the bad guy remote access? What can he do?
He has access to the computer, whatever he wants. He can download files. He can pull off information from the browser. He has complete control of the computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And lastly is the business email compromises that I'm really not going to spend much time with, but, and let's just call it the account compromise, but it still goes back to email. Mm-hmm. We think so much of fraudulent emails, but this is a regular email from somebody that that's compromised. So these are really the elements of social engineering, and I kind of breeze through them.
Yeah, you shared with me a document you have on that you put together on how to protect seniors. There's just a lot of information here. So talk about your call to, because we're coming up on 45 minutes. We wanted this to be we want this to be a good time. We want it to be a good time, not a long time. So what's your talk about?
Yeah, I know, and unfortunately, it's always a long time.
What is your call to action?
Here, it's just like take this, share this information, share it with somebody that you love. It takes a community to stay safe. I am putting this together. I might call you, Darren, to get the motivation to write a second book or a third book, because on everything that I did for this outline, for this talk track that I'm building for the senior center, I have 8 different types of social engineering. I got all these different frauds. Remember, and I want everyone here to think this through. Bad guys steal your stuff. Law enforcement cannot get it back. It's very challenging. It's a big black hole. Putting the bad guys in jail is equally as hard. The money, it disappears. These are bad people who are overseas. It breaks my heart, Darren, when I have to have a talk with someone and I'm like, I'm going to call you. I'm going to help you, but I'm hospice at this time. And it's very upsetting. And lastly, if most of this stuff easily could be prevented, then why don't we just do this? Darren, I appreciate you giving me a platform tonight to really kind of present this type of message. But take this information, contact Darren, contact myself, learn about this, keep your family safe.
That's right. We're here to help. Like I like to say, knowledge is protection, right? So do we have a ton of people watching this? No, but that's okay. Because you know what? Because ultimately the podcast will go out. People will listen there. People can follow us again on YouTube or LinkedIn, the video piece of it. You're going to take it with your assistant and cut up pieces and send it out. I mean, this is a lot of content on this podcast that this could be the rest of your July, right? The little things we talked about here and continuing to get that information out to folks. Because if you don't understand the threats targeting you, then you can't really assess your risk and figure out how bad it's going. And if you have a senior parent, you have seniors in your life, it's up to you really to help protect them because you're the one paying attention. They're probably not.
That's beautiful. Darren, that was poetic.
Thank you. So talk about your book. Your book is The Secrets of Cybersecurity, still available on Amazon, right?
And for anyone here who's listening, here's the Easter egg that I throw in. If you made it this far, shoot me a text and I will send you the audio copy of my book. And Darren, I'm going to show you how to record it. And this way you can sell it, you can give it away, you can do whatever you want because knowledge is power.
Protection. Knowledge is protection. Knowledge is protection. Knowledge is protection. That's the
knowledge is protection. I'm sorry. I wasn't listening.
That's right.
Okay. No, but please, if you listen, hit me up on LinkedIn if you're listening to this, and I'll send you a copy that you can have and also provide it to your parents.
And what's your website? Tell us your website.
CyberSecureMindset.com.
That's right. And as always, if you have thoughts, comments, questions on the CyBUr Guy podcast, if you want me to keep doing these more frequently instead of once every 5 months, let me know. And I think what I'm going to start doing with the CyBUr Guy podcast, because I don't want to kind of destroy it, obviously, is maybe when I have a thought in my head, come on and do 5 or 10 minutes, see how that goes, do micro podcasts. We'll see how that, if that.
Well, you need to have my friend Mark Evans on because he's great.
All right. Well,
Mark and I
if Mark stuck it out to the end here, he can text me or could connect me on LinkedIn and
I'll
we'll get him
hook
on.
You guys up.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks again. If you have thoughts or comments, you can find Scott, like he said, at cybersecuremindset.com. You can email me, Darren at thecyburguy.com, cyber spelled CYBUR. We are both on LinkedIn. We are not hard to find. We are all over LinkedIn all the time, so feel free to hit us up there. Otherwise, know that knowledge is protection. If you can understand the threats targeting you, you can assess your risk. Proceed wisely. Thanks again for listening, and we will be back hopefully in the near future.